In this week's video, I'll be demonstrating a technique for easily working multiple stitches together. As always, if you'd like to jump right to a specific point in the video, there are direct links down in the description. So let's get started. Often the trouble that knitters have when decreasing multiple stitches together, that is more than 2 stitches, like 3, 4, 5 or more stitches together, is that it can be really difficult to insert the needle through all of the stitches at one time, either because the tips of the needles are blunt, maybe the stitches are really tiny and it gets really hard to see, or the yarn is very slippery. Any of those things can make it really difficult. So instead, there are some techniques that we can use that can make it much easier. I want to start with the left-leaning multiple decreases, because the two techniques that are often used for left-leaning single decreases can be used to understand how the multiple decreases are worked. A very common left-leaning decrease is called the SSK, and that is done by slipping 2 stitches, slip 1, slip another. You slip them as if to knit, and the reason for that is to change how these stitches are sitting on the needle. So when they're first sitting on the needle, the right leg of the stitch, or what's called the leading leg of the stitch, is hanging over the front of the needle. When you insert as if to knit, this leg of the stitch that's sitting over the front of the needle will switch to sitting over the back of the needle. So we slip these 2 stitches as if to knit, and then we insert the left needle through the fronts of those 2 stitches, and now we're in a position to work them together. And then we can do so. So by slipping as if to knit, we have set up the stitches so that when they are worked together, they will not be twisted. The second left-leaning decrease is an older decrease. It's been around much longer than SSK. Barbara Walker invented the SSK increase back in the 70s, and it's become very popular since then, but previous to that, most knitters would have used slip 1, again slipping as if to knit, knit 1, and then passing that single slip stitch over, and that produces the exact same result. Some knitters find that their personal result looks tidier when they do an SSK, or some will think the result is tidier with an SKP. So they're interchangeable decreases, but there are 2 different techniques. So if we wanted to decrease 5 stitches together, we have 2 options. The first one would be to slip all 5 stitches, one at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we would need to insert this left-hand needle through all 5 stitches in order to work them together. But you run into the same problem that you have trying to work a knit 5 together. So instead, if we want to work 5 stitches together, we slip the first 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we knit the 5th stitch. And now we can pass the other 4 stitches over the knit stitch one at a time, which is much easier than trying to work all 5 stitches together at one time. So the result is that you have this left-leaning decrease where the last stitch on the left is the one that is knit, and all of the stitches to its right are passed over it. So we can take this idea of a left-leaning decrease where the leftmost stitch is knit and the other stitch, the stitches to its right, are passed over, and we can apply that to a situation where we want to do knit 5 together instead, and that would be a right-leaning decrease. So in that case, the stitch furthest to the right is knit first. So we knit this stitch. In order to pass these 4 stitches over this stitch, it has to be returned. And we're going to return it so that the stitch mount is maintained. So the needles are going to point toward each other. So we call this slipping as if to purl. And now we can pass these stitches over the top, but we don't have to worry about the stitches twisting. When you're passing over from the left, you do not have to worry about remounting the stitches first. You can just pass them over until you've passed all of them over. And now, once again, we return this stitch back, maintaining the stitch mount to the right hand needle. And now we have a right leaning decrease where the rightmost stitch was knit first and all of the stitches to its left were passed over it. This method of knitting, returning, and passing over and then slipping back to produce a right leaning decrease is sometimes used for a knit two together in order to produce a result that is more similar to an SKP or SSK, which can have a somewhat elongated result. The slipping and passing over pulls a bit of slack into the manipulated stitches, which can help to produce a more closely mirrored result than attempting to fix the SSK, SKP result. Every knitter is different, of course, so what works well for one knitter may not work well for another. If you have any questions or comments about today's video, you can leave those down in the comments below or join the discussion in my Ravelry group, Rocks, and there's a link to that down in the description box below. If you have questions not related to this video, please ask them in the Rocks group. I upload a new Technique Tuesday video every week, and on Fridays, I upload my Casual Friday podcast videos. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, you can click up here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.